Asterisk asterisk, the mask and the wound. Understanding the persona asterisk asterisk, there is a face you wear each day to your colleagues, to your family, to the mirror. It is polished, curated, cautious. It smiles when required, answers when expected, nods to please. This is your mask, the persona. It is not fake, but it is not your whole truth either. It is what the world has shaped you into, and what you, in turn, offer back. This mask is born not of deception, but of survival. The moment we step into society, we inherit the quiet pressure to appear composed, to fit in, to protect the soft undercurrents of who we really are. The child learns quickly that tears earn ridicule, sensitivity earns rejection, and truth can cost you belonging. So you build a face that can withstand the world, but in the process, parts of you remain unexpressed, abandoned, or buried. The wound lies underneath, deep, unseen, and unresolved. It is the rejection you internalized at 5 years old when your voice was dismissed. It is the heartbreak that shattered something you didn't know could break. It is the loss that turned your laughter into something foreign. These are not just memories. They are energies trapped in the psyche, and though we hide them, they continue to bleed into our words, our relationships, our silences. To understand how to act as if nothing hurts you, you must first see that the act already exists. You already do it, but unconsciously. You wear the persona, but you believe it is you. That is the fracture. To act as if nothing hurts you with mastery requires the awakening of a different awareness, the realization that the persona is a tool, not an identity. Most people are imprisoned by their mask because they have forgotten they put it on. They no longer see that behind the smile is a buried scream. Behind the calm tone is a trembling child. The persona is meant to serve the self, not replace it. But in the culture of performance, we start to believe our curated face is our reality, and so we become strangers to our own pain, even as it leaks out through sarcasm, through coldness, through compulsive strength. True power begins the moment you recognize that both the mask and the wound are parts of a greater whole. The mask is not evil. It protects you in the marketplace, in the courtroom, in the chaos of the world. The wound is not weakness. It holds the raw material of your depth, your empathy, your originality. The problem arises when we identify solely with one or the other, either collapsing into our pain or pretending it never existed. Both are illusions. Integration is the path. You must look at your persona not with shame, but with awareness. You must understand what role it plays in your life, what image it presents, what fears it conceals, and how it interacts with your deeper self. It is in this awareness that you begin to transform the mask from a prison into a portal. The moment you can observe yourself wearing the mask not with judgment, but with clarity, you begin to reclaim the power it once held over you. You begin to use it consciously. The face you show the world no longer hides the wound, but honors it by refusing to let it define your response. You learn to be aware of your pain without letting it become a performance. You do not suppress it. You hold it silently, wisely, like a stone in your palm, always there, but no longer controlling your step. People often ask, should I be authentic, or should I be strong? Should I show my pain, or should I hide it? But the deeper truth lies beyond this binary. The answer is not in choosing one or the other, but in uniting them within. To act as if nothing hurts you does not mean you are numb. It means you have entered into such a relationship with your pain that you no longer need to express it to validate it. You carry it with dignity. You let it teach you, not teach others through dramatic display, but teach you about patience, about silence, about restraint. This is not denial. This is conscious containment. This is the path of maturity. The persona, when unconscious, is a barrier. When conscious, it becomes a vessel. You begin to wear it not out of fear, but out of strength. It is no longer a disguise. It is a symbol. You choose how to speak, how to respond, how to appear, not to deceive others, but to guide them toward something deeper. And in this act of choosing, of awareness, you step into the paradox. You begin to act as if nothing hurts you, not because you are unhurt, but because you are no longer enslaved by your wounds. The face you show becomes a work of inner craftsmanship. The silence behind your smile is not emptiness, but vastness. You become unreadable not because you are hiding, but because you have become whole. Asterisk asterisk, the shadow of sensitivity. Making peace with pain, asterisk asterisk. There is a subtle but powerful fear that haunts many people. The fear of being seen in their rawness, in their sensitivity, in the places where they feel deeply. Sensitivity, though often framed as a gift in spiritual or artistic language, is something most people are taught to hide from a young age. When you cried too easily, they told you to toughen up. When you were moved by things others ignored, they labeled you as fragile. Slowly, silently, a pattern took root, a belief that pain must be concealed, that tenderness is a weakness, that if the world sees where you feel most, it will exploit you. This belief becomes the bedrock of the false strength so many carry. Not the real strength that comes from groundedness, but the brittle kind, the one that's all posture, defense, and armor. The sensitive parts of the psyche, the subtle currents of emotion, are then driven underground, repressed and unspoken. But the psyche does not forget. What is unacknowledged is not erased, it is exiled. It becomes part of the shadow, and the shadow always finds a way back. The shadow of sensitivity manifests in many ways: in rage that erupts when the mask slips, in cold detachment that hides unmet longing, in perfectionism that conceals the fear of rejection. When we do not make peace with pain, it owns us in disguised form. The world sees only the performance, the person who never cries, never stumbles, never shows weakness. But underneath, the soul aches for permission to feel openly, safely, without judgment. This is the paradox. What we deny in ourselves becomes our prison. We hide our pain, believing we are protecting ourselves, but in truth, we are only isolating ourselves from our own depths. To act as if nothing hurts you in the way that fosters growth rather than denial begins with meeting your sensitivity face to face. This does not mean announcing it to the world, nor does it mean collapsing into it. It means observing it with clarity and without shame. It means becoming a witness to your own emotional world. Why does that word cut deeper than it should? Why does silence feel unbearable? Why does disapproval wound like a blade? These questions are not signs of weakness, they are doorways into strength. They invite you to explore the contours of your emotional being, to discover not only where you are vulnerable, but why. In this act of inward observation, something subtle shifts. You begin to unhook your identity from your pain. You are not the wound, you are the awareness of the wound. You are not the tears, you are the one who notices the tears. This distance, not of dissociation but of depth, allows you to hold your sensitivity without becoming overwhelmed by it. You start to see it not as something to hide, but as something to understand, to channel, to honor silently. Sensitivity, when integrated, becomes discernment. You become someone who senses energies in the room, who perceives subtext in conversation, who can anticipate emotional undercurrents before they surface. But this only becomes possible when you stop reacting to every sting as an emergency. The path of psychological strength is not the eradication of pain, but the cultivation of space within it. To act as if nothing hurts you does not mean the world cannot touch you. It means the world no longer controls you. Because you have sat with your pain, you no longer fear it. Because you have made peace with your sensitivity, you no longer need to defend it. The world often rewards numbness. It celebrates the person who shrugs off betrayal, who moves on quickly, who never seems to feel too much. But beneath that facade, there is often a silent corrosion, the kind that erodes intimacy, creativity, and inner peace. Real strength, the kind that others can feel without you announcing it, comes from having faced your pain and chosen not to be defined by it. The sensitive individual who has walked through their darkness and emerged with self-awareness carries a quiet intensity. They do not need to prove anything. They speak less, but their words cut deeper. They feel more, but reveal less. And this mystery, this containment, becomes a kind of power. In a world obsessed with external display of pain or of power, the greatest act of self-mastery is inner equilibrium. You allow yourself to feel everything, but you learn not to bleed everywhere. You acknowledge your wounds in private, so you can walk in the world without letting others press those wounds like buttons. This is not performance. This is sovereignty. You do not lie to the world about who you are. You simply stop giving the world access to what it has not earned. Your sensitivity becomes a sacred interior, one you carry with reverence, not as a burden, but as a source of meaning, of beauty, of clarity. The shadow begins to dissipate the moment you stop fighting it. When you welcome your sensitivity, you stop needing to hide behind the caricature of the unshakable. You no longer act invincible to be safe. You act centered because you are safe not in the world, but within yourself. And in that state, the outer stillness you project is no longer a mask. It is a reflection of your inner integration. Asterisk asterisk symbolic strength. Inner stillness over outer reaction. Asterisk asterisk in a world that moves with noise, where expression is immediate and reactions are expected on demand. The individual who cultivates silence becomes a symbol of something rare and unsettling. There is a power in stillness, a quiet intensity that speaks louder than any defense or emotional outburst. This stillness is not passivity. It is not avoidance or repression. It is a strength that comes from having entered into the chamber of the self, from having tasted the fire of chaos and chosen not to flinch. To act as if nothing hurts you is not to be numb, nor to pretend. It is to replace outward reaction with inward attention. It is the art of not leaking your essence for temporary validation. Most people live in a state of emotional volatility. They are constantly reacting to a tone of voice, to a perceived insult, to the ghosts of past pain that still echo in every present interaction. This reactive mode is exhausting because it gives the world a remote control to your state of being. Every look, every word, every silence becomes a trigger, and when one is always reacting, they are never creating. They are never choosing. They are simply echoing the unresolved fragments of their unconscious. But there is another way, a way that begins not with force, but with awareness. The individual who learns to observe rather than react, to withhold rather than explode, does not do so out of fear or suppression. They do so from a different posture, one of containment, of mastery. They understand that every reaction is a leakage of psychic energy. Every uncontrolled emotional response is a handing over of power. And so they choose a different strategy. They choose the symbolic over the dramatic, the interior over the impulsive. Symbolic strength is cultivated in solitude. It is not found in the applause of the crowd or in the righteousness of confrontation. It is formed in the quiet moments when one witnesses their own emotional storm and chooses to let it pass without externalizing it. It is in the breath between insult and response, in the glance that could provoke, but is met with stillness, in the tension that demands release, but is met instead with reflection. This kind of strength unsettles those who seek control through reaction. When someone cannot provoke you, they cannot define you. When you hold your center, you become illegible to those who want to manipulate you. The ego craves reaction. It wants the last word. It wants to defend, to correct, to display its wounds as a form of proof. But the self, the deeper, symbolic self, has no such needs. It is not interested in performance. It is not seeking vindication. It is rooted in something far beyond the moment, beyond the immediate judgment of others. This self knows that true power is not in what you say, but in what you can hold, in what you do not say, in what you allow to die in silence. This inner stillness is a kind of language, one that does not speak in words, but in presence. It communicates safety to those who can feel it, and mystery to those who try to penetrate it. The person who cultivates symbolic strength becomes an enigma. They do not react the way the world expects. They do not retaliate in predictable ways, and because of that, they become dangerous not in aggression, but in unpredictability. You cannot control what you cannot read, and you cannot read someone who has made peace with their inner chaos and no longer needs to display it. There is a mythological resonance to this strength. In ancient tales, the warrior who sat in silence before battle, who gazed into the fire without blinking, was feared more than the one who shouted threats. Stillness was seen as a sign of inner alignment, of a soul that had seen its own death and returned unshaken. When you learn to act as if nothing hurts you, not from a place of performance, but from true integration, you begin to carry this mythic energy. You become a living symbol, not of denial, but of transcendence. And this transcendence is not lofty or unreachable. It is built slowly. In every moment you choose stillness over reaction. Every time you feel the pull to explain yourself, to justify your feelings, to lash out in pain and instead breathe, observe, and remain centered, you are building that symbolic strength. You are telling your unconscious that it no longer needs to beg for recognition. You are telling your wounds that they are safe, not because the world changed, but because you did. Such a person becomes unshakable not because they have no emotions, but because they are not ruled by them. They can feel rage and not act on it. They can feel sorrow and not collapse into it. They can feel fear and still move forward. And in this state, they act as if nothing hurts them, not because they do not hurt, but because their pain is no longer their master. It becomes a silent companion, a teacher whose lessons are integrated, not performed. And through this, every moment of stillness becomes a declaration that no one and nothing outside of you owns your inner world. *** individuation, the integration of hurt into wholeness. *** There is a stage of psychological evolution where pain ceases to be an obstacle and begins to function as a guide. This stage is not achieved by bypassing suffering, nor by numbing oneself to experience. It is reached only through the inward spiral that leads to individuation, the process by which a person becomes whole, not by perfection, but by integration. To act as if nothing hurts you in its highest form does not mean you are beyond pain, but that pain has been metabolized into the architecture of your being. You are no longer at war with what happened to you. You are no longer defined by what wounded you. Instead, you have digested those experiences into your psychic bloodstream, and now they serve your becoming. Most people live fragmented lives. They operate from split selves, the part that performs confidence, the part that hides shame, the part that secretly sabotages, and the part that yearns for meaning. These fragments are not inherently wrong. They are survival strategies formed in response to life's early injuries, but when left unexamined, they remain in opposition to each other. One part wants to be loved, while another doesn't trust love. One part wants to forgive, while another clings to anger for protection. This inner civil war exhausts the soul and makes any real growth impossible. To step onto the path of individuation is to bring these split parts into dialogue, not to force harmony, but to allow each voice its truth, so that unity can emerge from authenticity, not suppression. Your wounds speak in symbols. The pain you carry is not random. It points to what has not yet been seen, honored, integrated. The rejection you keep reliving may be a message from the self you rejected first. The betrayal that haunts you may mirror a deeper betrayal you committed against your own values. The anxiety you cannot shake may be the voice of a deeper intelligence trying to get your attention. This is the symbolic language of the psyche, and it is through this lens that individuation begins, not by silencing pain, but by interpreting it, decoding it, sitting with it long enough for it to reveal what it came to teach. This process demands radical honesty. It is far easier to blame the world for our suffering than to look inward and ask, why did this wound find me? What aspect of me did this awaken? Not all pain is chosen, but all pain becomes meaningful when we face it through the lens of integration. The goal is not to eliminate pain, but to remove its capacity to divide us internally. When we stop identifying with the wound and start listening to it, we no longer collapse into victimhood. We begin to co-create with our suffering, allowing it to sculpt a deeper sense of self. Acting as if nothing hurts you, when done from a place of individuation, is not performance. It is not a mask. It is the quiet radiance of someone who has met themselves in their most shattered moments and stayed. There is no need to convince the world of anything, no need to prove resilience or strength. The wholeness you carry speaks for itself. It is felt in the way you listen, in the way you move through conflict, in the way you hold boundaries without rage. This kind of presence cannot be faked. It arises only when the inner world is no longer fractured by denial or self-rejection. Individuation is a return not to innocence, but to complexity embraced. You become someone who can hold contradiction. You are both soft and strong. You remember what broke you, but you do not broadcast it for sympathy. You feel deeply, but you do not require the world to adjust itself to your sensitivity. You have reclaimed every piece of yourself you once abandoned to fit in, to feel safe, to be loved. And now, those pieces live within you, reconciled, no longer competing. The outer appearance of calm is not a facade, it is the outward reflection of inner resolution. This journey is not linear. Integration happens in spirals. Old wounds return in new forms, not to punish, but to deepen the lesson. Each return is an invitation to meet the wound from a new level of awareness. What once triggered collapse now invites compassion. What once provoked rage now evokes understanding. You begin to sense the rhythm of your own transformation, a process both delicate and fierce. And in this rhythm, a deeper self begins to emerge, one that does not seek escape, but embodiment. This self, forged in the fire of reflection, is capable of moving through the world with a different kind of authority. You become trustworthy, not because you are perfect, but because you have faced the parts of yourself most people run from. You are no longer afraid of breaking because you have rebuilt yourself. And each time you did, you became more you, less of the mask, more of the essence. Wholeness is not a state of flawlessness. It is a relationship with every part of yourself, especially the ones you were taught to hide. The appearance of being untouched by pain is no longer a strategy. It is the natural consequence of inner harmony. The world may project strength onto you, but only you know the truth that your stillness is not silence, but synthesis. That your calm is not distance, but presence, and that the reason you seem unshaken is because you have already walked through the storm and brought it home within yourself. Conclusion. To act as if nothing hurts you is not to escape your pain, but to transcend your relationship with it. It is the outcome of deep inner work, not a mask of stoicism, but a mark of inner sovereignty. Through confronting the shadows of sensitivity, through mastering the art of symbolic strength, and through the sacred journey of individuation, you emerge as someone who carries the fullness of their past without being imprisoned by it. You have felt deeply, suffered honestly, and integrated silently. What once broke you is now part of your architecture, no longer an open wound, but a sculpted pillar of your strength. In this way, you become dangerous to those who feed on reaction, yet magnetic to those who seek truth. You radiate a stillness that cannot be imitated, a depth that cannot be faked, and a presence that reveals you are no longer ruled by fear or pain because you have made a home within them. And so, without having to prove or perform, you walk through the world whole, quietly, untouchably powerful,